So on my previous video on The Wire, I mentioned that the creator of the show, David Simon, blocked me on Twitter and called me an asshole and a shitheel. And a lot of people were asking why, so I thought, okay, why not make a video about it? If you're not interested in YouTube drama or politics, things I actively look to keep away from this channel, as I want it to be a space for people to chill out and discuss their favorite movies and TV shows, then feel free to just click off the video. And I appreciate, some might say, just stick to talking about movies, but on Twitter, it's a different story. I engage in discussions about sports, politics, whatever, and some people will find this video interesting. Ultimately, it's not really a big deal in any case. I appreciate David Simon immensely, and I still do after this series of events, and I'll continue making videos on The Wire. But people can have different opinions. No one is holistically correct or incorrect in their view, and ultimately, I do not worship at the altar of any celebrity. I think they're as open to criticism as much as anyone, as am I, which is why I encourage people to give their own opinions on my movie analyses in the comments section of my videos. And I consider, or I hope, that I am a man of integrity. I feel, to an extent, I've been tested with regards to this. I'm just a normal guy, like everyone. I could do with having more cash in the bank, but I've turned down numerous sponsorship offers because I don't think the product was one I could ethically promote to my audience. I've had the chance to interview a film director who made a gangster movie with Harvey Keitel, and he essentially told me he'll do an interview if I give his film a good review. I didn't like the movie, and I made this clear in my review, blowing the chance at an interview as he never spoke to me again. Michael Francese is a beloved figure in the mob movie world, and he had heaps of praise for his review of The Many Saints of Newark, but I went against the grain and criticized him for being hypocritical. I interviewed the author of The Family Corleone, and rather than spend the entire interview foaming at the mouth at how I managed to land such an interview and kissing his bum, we had a wonderful conversation where, in spite of liking the book, I pushed back against some of the creative decisions he made and asked him why there were major differences in his work to the original works by Mario Puzo. The point I'm making here is not to self-importantly toot my own horn and say, look how amazing I am, but that I hope I can say that with me, what you see is what you'll get. My opinions are my own, and though I love the works these people do, I will not be a sycophant and suck up to them, even if it means blocking off avenues for my channel's growth. For me, integrity is more valuable. Obviously, as a huge fan of The Wire, I follow David Simon on Twitter for things he may say about the show. I have previously asked him some questions on the show, but didn't get anywhere. For the past couple of weeks, though, in my feed, I constantly noted his name coming up regarding the conflict in the Middle East, and there's two things I noticed. Firstly, his takes were very strange. Secondly, his attitude was quite simply deplorable. This is a 60-plus-year-old multi-millionaire journalist, TV series producer and author, a very educated and intelligent man who gave us what I think is the best TV series ever made, a show which gave us incredible insight into the bureaucracies and institutions that allow the Baltimore drug trade to flow. It's one of the few shows where after I watched it, I felt like I knew a little more about why the world is the way it is. I've seen a few interviews with him where he comes off as eloquent and well-spoken. To such an extent, I thought his Twitter account was a troll one, or it got hijacked or something. Shitmonger, shit squib, idiot, asshole, fuck you, dumb squib, I wish I could spit on you, eat shit, and literally, your mum, are just some of the words he's been using. I mean, who talks like that? An edgy 12-year-old maybe, but David Judah Simon, former writer of the Baltimore Sun and creator of The Wire? Really? It is kind of bewildering that a man of his stature is not only acting in such a way. I mean, if you're that emotionally invested and it's taking such a toll on you, then maybe log off the internet for a few days. But rather ironically, he validates the opinion of random people such as myself by replying, swearing and blocking. What I could possibly come away from this is thinking that I managed to touch the nerve of the great David Simon so much that it prompted the kind of response he gave. People will wave around his juvenile Twitter responses as a badge of honor. Granted, his stance on the conflict is more measured than a lot of people's, but from what I can see, it's drenched in virtue signaling, bad takes, maybe even cognitive dissonance in regards to what he's seeing play out is so different to what he wants to have been playing out. Having looked at his feed for about 2 weeks without commenting, and you can check it out yourself, he seems to repost and vehemently denounce anti-Jewish and anti-Semitic graffiti and whatnot, which he is entitled to do so, and the actions themselves are reprehensible. And he is actively talking about this conflict. It's not like other people are bringing it up. But when it is put to him, the carrying out of carpet bombing, white phosphorus, and other actions which are illegal under international law, he comes out with blanket statements about both sides and other cop-outs which are incredulous when considering he is so emotional when it comes to something like graffiti. Yeah, it's bad, but is it as bad as entire bloodlines being wiped out and children being indiscriminately killed? He keeps bringing up the graffiti when people are talking to him about people literally dying. There are only so many tears that can be spared over graffiti until you reach the point where it feels like you're whining and playing the victim, especially when the only death in the US related to this conflict was a 6-year-old Palestinian American Muslim. There's an estimated 7 million Palestinian refugees in the world. How many Israeli ones are there? There's a clear asymmetry to this story, one which a man like Simon, who has worked in the media, would clearly see, but is choosing not to acknowledge. There's a lot that can be said, even his constant framing of the issue as a Jewish versus Muslim thing, which is naive at best. Since this whole thing, before making this video, I looked on his Wikipedia page and it actually reinforces the idea that he has a vested interest and a bias, rather than being an impartial humanitarian. The conflict itself is not really the point of this video. I just thought it'd be interesting that someone who makes loads of videos on The Wire got a response from the man who created the show. And it was such a bizarre one, and I thought people might find it interesting. I'm not an expert on the conflict, and neither are you, and we'd be here all day if you wanted to get into it. But as an outsider to it all, it is on the news a lot, and I try to follow as much varied experts as possible, such as the Jewish political scientist Norman Finkelstein. But what I see are videos from on the ground of unimaginable horror in both Israel and Palestine, but astronomically heavier on one side. I see numbers and statistics from reputable media outlets who historically have favored one side over the other, even them explicitly stating that the death toll in Gaza has exceeded 10,000 and that almost half of those are children. I have seen the Israeli Prime Minister evoke the biblical verse of the Amalekites, where it orders to kill man, woman, child, and even donkey. I've seen the US President Joe Biden say that if Israel didn't exist in the Middle East, the US would have to invent one, as it serves US interest. I've seen genocidal discourse, such as the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant openly declaring he will enact war crimes and comparing Palestinians to animals. That's straight from the horse's mouth, and yet the mainstream news channels act as a PR machine and sanitize what is clearly genocidal rhetoric and offer a more balanced but disingenuous reporting. Reports have confirmed that the tonnage of bombs dropped on Gaza have exceeded the amount the US dropped on Hiroshima. Bombs dropped on hospitals, schools, and refugee camps, power removed from hospitals causing the death of babies in incubators. When did it become controversial to say stop dropping these bombs and to call for a ceasefire? And then you consider the context, the fact that there has been a blockade around Gaza since 2005, where Israel controls what goes in and out, whether it be food, people, aid. What do we call places like that? We call them concentration camps. I've never known a supposed victim to be able to turn his oppressor's water and electricity supply on and off. There's the fact that there has been an occupation since the 1940s, the building of illegal settlements and encroachment of lands even during periods of quote-unquote peace, and first-hand witness testimony I have from people who have visited these lands and have told me about an openly oppressive and apartheid system they have seen, and the justification of one of the most superior armies in the world, one that gets $4 billion a year in funding from the US whilst veterans sleep on the streets, as shown in David Simon's The Wire. The justification is because of a tiny militant group's actions. So you need to destroy an entire area and thousands of innocents just to get at a small number of militants with all the technological arsenal at your disposal. These militants, which are apparently hiding under beds, in the bath, in the attic, in the walls, and children's toys. I'm sorry, but I just don't buy it. That group doesn't even exist in the West Bank, where there have been in excess of 100 killings in the past few weeks, so what's the excuse there? What if they were hiding in an Israeli headquarters which was populated with so many civilians? Would they get carpet bombed as well? Would you burn an entire house down if there is a single annoying bee buzzing around? These are excuses for what in actuality is simply the only military European colonization project still left in the world. I've seen this movie before. I've seen, for example, the lies about Iraq having weapons of mass destruction, something which we now know is a lie, but at the time it was used to justify inconceivable atrocities. The narrative being that we have to do these things, otherwise they will use their weapons. And I know this will upset some people and some will unsubscribe, but like I said about integrity, the way I see things is the way I see things. I've tried to be as balanced as I can be. And to come away with all this, all that's been going on for the past 2 weeks, by constantly holding your hands up and saying, oh, well, both sides could do better, when holding a microscope to the actions of one side and hand-waving the actions of the other, is quite frankly disingenuous and harks back to that saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. And I'd expect better from a man like David Simon, which is why I weighed in a little on one comment. If it was some random fella, or even another TV show creator like, David Chase, whose politics I'm unaware of, it would be a different story. But this man worked in the media. He knows how it works. He gave us a show that is studied in universities, which is loved by presidents of the US. In response to this comment, where the person says there is a genocide going on and you're worried about some graffiti, Simon says, no, you dumb squib, there is a war going on with cruelties on both sides, and when rancid shitheels use it as an opportunity to target random Jews and Muslims who have fuck all to do with it, I object. So then I chimed in, what a crazy hill you've decided to die on. 10,000 plus dead, war crime after war crime, and it's both sides? Name-calling those who disagree? Come on, David, you're better than that. Could I have worded it better? Yeah, I guess, but the utter contempt with which he was talking to people turned me off the idea of making a delicate comment, and then as if to prove my point on the name-calling, he said the following, asshole. There is a pinned thread on my account that declares what I think about Israel, Gaza, and shitheels such as yourself on either side who can only be full-throated for one half of this grievous story. All of you pretend to be clean. No one is clean. That's my hill, not dead. And then he blocked me. And that's the end of the story, really. I am a little sad, not at the response nor the blocking. I had anticipated that would happen, and as mentioned, I've never been one to hero worship celebrities, no matter how much I appreciate their works. But it's just that you would expect a more measured approach from someone who's given us the kind of works he has. The decorum, the way he's carried himself has been embarrassing. But he's entitled to have his opinion, I'm entitled to respond to it, he's entitled to block me, and I'm entitled to make a video on it. And, well, there you have it. Hope you found that interesting. You'll still be seeing videos on The Wire. This hasn't changed my appreciation for the show. Thanks for watching.